Hi there, my name is Molly, and I am currently a 5th grade teacher here in the state of Florida. Before I became a teacher, I was already kind of a teacher, but before I started this year, I watched so much teacher YouTube to get ready for the year, because I thought the more I watched, the more I would be ready, but no, not the case. And last summer, there was a tag created by Teach Like a Girl, who I love and miss her YouTube channel. Still follow her on Instagram though. And it was the first year teacher tag. Now that I'm going into my last week of my first year, I decided that I want to go ahead and do this video before I forget everything and can't reflect. So here we go. Okay, no edits. Here we go. The first question is, what was your worst moment in your first year of teaching? And for me, I thankfully didn't have crazy behaviors. I had a great class this year. And so it wasn't like a moment, it was like a 3-day time period. And in that 3-day time period, parents contacted my administration about me twice. And the first one was just to let, the administration know that their child was suffering with anxiety and it was really affecting him. And unfortunately, my presence wasn't really helping them not have anxiety, and I was approached by my principal during recess, and she sat me down and she told me that. And that was really hard because, for one thing, I just wish parents could be more transparent and tell me what was going on. And also, I love this student. We're not supposed to have favorites, but you know what I mean, so that really was a bummer. And I was just confused, and I wanted to talk to the kid about it, but I was advised not to, so that was a bummer. And then the next day, literally the next day, I had noticed that one student hadn't turned their homework in for 8 weeks. And I don't grade homework, so I grade it, but I didn't put it in the grade book, so it wasn't affecting their grade, so it was hard for me to notice. And I was like, oh my gosh, does the parent know that this is happening? So I messaged the parent, and instead of responding to me, the parent decided to message my principal and was upset. And so I had to have another encounter with my principal to let me know that this parent was upset, and this parent wants a parent-teacher conference, and they're upset they didn't email. You didn't email them back. And so we need to set up a parent-teacher conference. So luckily, the parent wasn't very patient. They'd waited 10 minutes until their email was sent and didn't get responded to message the principal. And I was actually teaching in those 10 minutes. So of course, my principal understood, but it just felt like, oh my gosh, am I gonna get fired? They had to talk to me twice. And so that was really hard. But luckily, all was resolved, and I felt like the parent relationships were way better after, dealing with everything. But it was not a fun moment for me. And parents still kind of scare me a little bit, I'll be honest. That's something I struggle with. Question number 2 is a little bit of a juxtaposition, and it is, what was your best moment of your first year of teaching? So, for me, this is kind of easy, and it's not a content-related experience, so sorry if that's what it was supposed to be, but I am working towards incorporating restorative practices in my classroom. And part of restorative practices is having circle time. And it was at a time where we were right before spring break. And tensions are getting high. State testings coming around. So people have some opinions and feelings. And we did our first circle, and it was all about respect. And I just felt like our classroom community was so much better after it. And I know it was. And during the circle, everyone was just so vulnerable and honest with each other, and it was awesome. And everyone cried, even the boys, and it was so cute. So that was definitely a highlight. I really look forward to trying to get better with restorative practices and understanding it more, hopefully next year. We'll see. So that was my best moment. Question 3, I could make a whole entire video on this, and it's, I'm out of breath. What is your biggest regret from your first year of teaching? Now, this is really hard because it's kind of a big regret. And that is not being my authentic self as a teacher. Because for the first 2 quarters, I was doing exactly the same thing as my mentor teacher, who was also the other 5th grade ELA teacher. Because I didn't go to school to teach elementary, I went to school to teach secondary, and I had never taught in ELA. So I just felt like if I don't do the exact same thing that she's doing, my kids are not going to be successful because I don't know the exact tools that they need to be successful. And if you've ever taught or ever even been a student, you know, teachers are all different and everyone has their own style and their own personality. And doing that for 2 quarters was so draining. And I could really start to tell that my relationships with my students were suffering. I was having behavior problems. I was miserable. Miserable is kind of, I feel bad for saying that because I had awesome coworkers, so that made my job great. But I just was bored in my own class, and if you are bored as the teacher, there's a problem. There is literally a problem. And I just kept thinking, like, my students hate this, and they would tell me they didn't like reading, and it was just really discouraging. And it was because I was not being myself. And not to say that I'm so great, like my personality is amazing. That's not it. But I feel like I was being a robot. That's not enjoyable for any student. So that's my biggest regret, was setting my expectations too high for myself, because that actually stifled who I was. Like, I wish I could have seen myself as a teacher being authentic the whole year to see how it would have been different. So you live and you learn, kids. Question 4. Ooh. What is something you wish you knew before you started teaching? Okay. It's something I knew before, but I didn't really know. And I felt like I knew a lot. I went to school for education. My dad's a teacher. My grandma's a teacher. My sister is a teacher. And I've always loved school. I did internships and substitute taught. So I felt like I knew a lot, but you just do not understand how emotional this job can be. And I am already a very emotional person, but just the amount of weight teaching has and that it can have on your life is insane, because you care so much about these individuals that you're teaching. And a lot of the times they're not in the best situations. You know that they see things and hear things that you would hate for your children to hear and see, or even yourself. And that's a real thing. And I think about my kids, I call them my kids, I think about my students a lot and just worry about them. I mean, I didn't realize how emotional this job is and how deeply you can connect to someone over a very short time period in the long run of life. Like, it's only been 9 months and I feel so deeply connected to my students. So that's me. I wish I had known. Just so I could have prepared myself and gotten myself more tissues in life. And this looks like the last one. Question 5. Okay. What is advice that you would give to a first year teacher? Oh my gosh. I will say that you can get so much advice and so much good advice, and you will never really know what to do until you live it. And for me, the phrase that got me through so many hard times, because I had a hurricane. I missed the whole week of school because we had a hurricane. That's a change of curriculum. I had a baby, my niece, born. So you miss PD, you do that. I had pink eye. I got pink eye for the first time in my entire life, the first time I was teaching. I got the flu. My husband had his appendix taken out. I got jury duty. There's so many things that you can't prepare for. And your life is going to be so crazy your first year of teaching. And I would wake up at like 6 a.m. and leave school at like 6 p.m. just because I had so much work to do. So the phrase that I'm going to give you and the advice that I'm going to give you and everyone's given to me, and it got me through this year, and sorry that was a little rambly that I just said, but is you only have one first year of teaching, and after that you never have to do it again. And that sounds like weird advice, but for me, knowing that this is the only time I'm ever gonna have to do this for the first time was very motivational, and I hung on to it and clung to it all the way up to the last week of school, which is where I'm at right now. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to hearing from other teachers and hopefully sharing my teaching journey more and more as I have more time over the summer. So thanks again, and I'll see you later. Bye.